But Emma Sugli earned her LLB from Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. She's currently a postgraduate student in the MA program Digital Transformation, e-diplomacy, e-campaigning, and digital law at Pantheon University. And she also works in the legal department of the Thessaloniki Bar Association. Emma has also been quite involved in some other endeavors, as she's been a youth fellow in the International Youth Think Tank at the University of Gothenburg, a partner of ours, since 2021, diving into research and the interconnection between digitalization and global democratic governance. So Emma, I'll pass it off to you to kick off your presentation titled Computer Vision and Pattern Recognition, the Non-Discrimination Framework and the Recent AI Regulation.
Hello, everyone. It's so great participating in Europe Considering All conference once again. So briefly, we're going to explore the non-discrimination framework and the recent AI regulation concerning the computer vision and the pattern recognition. Starting off with the terminology, computer vision and pattern recognition is a field of AI that enables a computer to understand and interpret visual data. And similarly to the biological vision system, the convolutional neural networks have the ability to process a given amount of labeled data the second they see an image. On the other hand, face recognition is a biometric identification technique making use of the facial characteristics in order to identify individuals. There is usually a database of known faces so as to compare the face print, and if there is a match, the individual is actually identified. So face recognition is basically conducted in 3 steps. Firstly, it's the alignment and detection. That is the detection of faces in an input image or video. Secondly, is the feature measurement and extraction. That is where the convolutional neural networks come in, extracting high levels of features. And thirdly, it is the face recognition. That is the match of the extracted features with faces in a database. Seeing that detecting the face is often difficult to accomplish, multiple genetic facial landmarks are also used, as you can see in the photo, like the chin, the top of the nose, the outside of the eyes, and various points around the eyes and the mouth. All these, I know, sound extraordinary, sound very promising, but they're also susceptible to error. They're pervasive, they're intrusive, jeopardizing several fundamental human rights. So in order to effectively address those concerns, the EU has made some considerable efforts. In one of a universal regulatory framework that explicitly regulates FRTs, critical parameters for the development and the use of FRTs are only laid down within the EU legal order. And I think the same goes for the US at the moment. There is no federal legislation yet, but potential moratoriums are being proposed around the country at the state and local level. So the use of FRTs by public authorities constitutes an interference with the rights to data protection under the Article 8 of the Charter of the Fundamental Rights and the right to private life as set out in the Article 7 of the Charter, as you can see in the slide. And any limitation on these fundamental rights must be strictly necessary and proportionate according to Article 52.1 of the Charter. However, these hardly provide any practical guidance for the use of FRTs, and they resolve disputes and conflicts only indirectly. So as you can tell, it is up to the secondary law, which presents a workable framework, the Law Enforcement Directive and the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, according to the Article 2.1 and 2, accordingly, apply to the automated processing of personal data. In particular, pursuant to Article 5 of the GDPR, and Article 4 of the Law Enforcement Directive, the processing of facial images must be lawful, fair, transparent, must follow a specific, explicit, and legitimate purpose, which is clearly defined by the member state and the union law, and also has to comply with the requirements of data minimization, data accuracy, storage limitation, data security, and of course, accountability. The Article 22 of the GDPR also prohibits any fully automated decision with legal or similar significant effects with the aim of preventing the individuals from being subject of profiling. However, it should be noted that this prohibition does not apply for automated decisions that are based on individuals' explicit consent or that are necessary, for example, for a contract between the individual and the data controller, or that it is necessary authorized by the law. Moving on to the non-discrimination framework, the Articles 2 of the Treaty of the European Union, 10 of the Treaty of the Function of the European Union, 2021 of the Charter, include the non-discrimination rules about the respect of human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, rule of law, respect of human rights, representative democracy, as well as equality. Despite these provisions, as for the secondary law, the protection isn't homogeneous at all. It is also inappropriately narrow, and the requirements are very high in order to achieve any kind of protection. And seeing this, it is said that the current EU anti-discrimination framework is not sufficient in order to protect civil rights from algorithmic discrimination. So, could self-regulation mitigate discrimination problems, and could it provide inspiration for lawmakers? Actually, the fairness, accountability, and the ethical use of AI have been the main principles that spark the interest of several organizations. The principles for accountable algorithms and the social impact statement for algorithms, as published by the Fairness, Accountability, and Transparency Machine Learning Organization, illustrates this. But in spite of this laudable effect of self-regulation, protecting human rights cannot be left to self-regulation or soft law. These are not actually binding, and the principles are abstract with no detailed guidance. So we can all understand that even if the aforementioned legal background was extended so as to include the various shapes and the new forms of AI applications, such as the FRTs, it still wouldn't be effective. The victims aren't able to detect and prove discrimination due to the lack of reference points. The data protection legislation also makes use of abstract and open norms rather than black and white rules. And this omnibus approach makes the application very, very difficult. So victims are incapable of recognizing indirect discrimination in the first place. And in case of face recognition, the evidence to prove the algorithmic decisions of the suspected discrimination are usually not accessible to the victims. Therefore, it defies common sense reasoning and rules out the detection of discriminatory decisions and the comprehension of technical functionality. So thus, it all boils down to the landmark rules of the AI regulation, which is the world's first comprehensive AI law. And it also required intense work. As far as I can remember, the European Parliament members came after more than 30 hours of negotiation for that. This regulation has chosen a broad and technology-neutral definition and classification of the AI systems with different result-oriented requirements and obligations, intending to encompass the concepts of symbolic AI, machine learning, and hybrid systems. Together with a clear definition of the risk-based approach, the Act sets out for solid methodology of identifying the AI systems and provides concrete technical solutions in order to ensure that the legal framework is flexible enough to be adapted to different use cases and enable technological solutions. So the European Commission has chosen a risk-based approach. Harmful AI practices are banned under the Article 5, as they are a clear threat to people's safety, livelihood, and rights. Biometric systems, from the other hand, have been identified as high-risk AI under the Article 5. And according to Article 61, all high-risk AI will need to undergo conformity assessment before being placed on the market. so as to ensure that they're compliant to a variety of safety requirements, such as risk management, human oversight, and data governance. But they also need to undergo an export market surveillance and supervision in order to comply with the obligation and requirements for all high-risk AI systems that have already been placed in the market. It has important provisions from biometric identification too, according to which real-time remote identification on the public spaces for law enforcement is prohibited unless it is used in case of specific crimes, or is it used for targeted research for specific victims, abduction, trafficking, or sexual exploitation of human beings and missing persons, or for the intervention of threat to the life and physical safety of person, no response to the present or foreseeable threat or terror attack. This kind of real-time remote biometric identification would be subject to a prior authorization by a judicial and administrative authority, whose decision is binding, of course. And if the authorization is rejected, all data and output have to be deleted. Also, cognitive behavioral manipulation and targeted trapping of facial images from the internet, CCTV footage, social scoring, biometric categorization systems that infer political, religious, philosophical beliefs, sexual orientations, and race are also banned. And with all this in mind, biometric data are a specifically sensitive type of personal data, and mass surveillance questions the protection of those data. When systems and technologies process personal biometric data in public spaces or online public spaces or publicly accessible spaces, this is considered biometric mass surveillance. The current deployment of biometric identification and surveillance system flourishes in a vacuum state of accountability or public oversight and violates constitutional privacy provisions. It obfuscates the balances between people and state, and of course, private companies, promotes authoritarian abuse. Democratic societies should not and cannot encourage this normalization of these activities that bear the hallmark of authoritarian regimes. Ultimately, biometric mass surveillance is fundamentally at odds with the essence of human dignity, with democratic society, fundamental rights and freedoms, procedural rights, and even the rule of law. And the risks are boosting power imbalancing, authoritarian societal control, discrimination, and inequalities. This comes about because of the centrality of the appearance to personal identity and the immutability and uniqueness of bodily characteristics that turn a blind eye to effortees to create permanent records of our lives, interactions, and behaviors without proper consent. Thank you.